Hello, Trevor Dyches again, this time from Osaka. It's been a couple weeks, and so I'm going to go over 2 weeks this time. The first week, the reason I missed is that I went to villages. Connection was pretty bad there, and when we came back, the events of traveling made it so that I wasn't able to record because of all that happened. So, yeah, sorry to miss, but this one will have 2 weeks to make up for that. So we'll start with the first week. Like I said, that one I visited the village. We visited 3 different villages. Ngario, near Kanyun, then one near Surut, and then Aleptong, that's Lira. And I have a sneaking suspicion that many people, when they think of Africa, what they think of are the villages. That's the place you go where there's no power, there's not a lot of people, very agricultural. It's like going to the country, right? When you go back to your village, there's not many amenities, and things are made out of bricks and thatch and everything, but it's honestly such a great place. It's not how most of Africa is, or most of Uganda is, but it is where most Africans come from. Everyone has their village. They usually grew up from there and then moved to town, and that's where I met them, right? Was at a different town. And so this time I went back with 3 of them to their villages to visit their families there, their parents, and to see how life is there. There's a lot more walking there. They walk, there's kids 3 to 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old walking to school. I guess not 3, but 4 and up, walking to school 3 kilometers away every day. So that's 6 kilometers just walking, and then school on top of that. There's a lot of farms and produce, and so honestly, though, the truth is, village life is better than town life. That's a common debate they have here at schools. Village life is better than town life, and they have to argue for and against it. But I think I'm on the village life side. I mean, sure, there's lots of things that you miss. It's like, for us Americans, it's like going camping there, except that you have a farm, except that you're living there camping, but you're living off grid. So we have places like that in America too. And when we go camping, we do a lot of these same things, where you don't have any power or network anymore. You just enjoying life there in the land. You're walking a lot. Like, it's like camping, but they're living there, right? But there's food there. There's so much food there. It's hard to find someone who doesn't have food growing. And this country has no winter. We're on the equator. I drove back to the South Equator yesterday. It's just, this is right on the equator. And so there's no winter. You can always be growing fresh food, always be having fresh food. And that makes it the village life, there's food. There's not a lot, but they have lots of food. Actually, I forgot, but before we went to these villages, we went to Ntinkulu, which is closer to Jinja. But that was also a village. They have power now, so it's not, as rural as the others. But one thing that does plague these villages are their health issues. The doctors are very few, 1 or 2 for the community. And sometimes both of them might not even be in the office, so they have to take a boat up to town if the emergency happens. There's one town, Dondo, where there's a lot, it's hard to find a household without lame. It's a little bit exaggeration, but there's a lot of lame kids there because of the polio, mostly, from what I understood. I think it's polio. They're not vaccinated for it. So, and then this other place, there was, when you get old and it's hard for you to move, and see. You're just sitting there on the dirt itself as other people take care of you. So, sure, there's some hard things there. And most people like town better. It is more convenient in a lot of ways. And there's more opportunity here, sure. But the villages are special. It's quiet there, peaceful there. Stars are beautiful. So, I don't know. I'm not much of a city boy myself, so I'm biased already, but I really loved going to those and seeing that place there. Now, something interesting is that the government has this program where they try to help the villages. And it's the government, so it's failing. But they give $1 million to different ones who are living there to allow them to use that to start businesses or to start agricultural pursuits or to buy some animals or whatever it might. Like, they give them money to help develop the village and to jumpstart some things. And there was a group of men that were literally sitting around 24/7 just drinking. And we were all trying to figure out how they could do that, how they could just be drinking so much without getting money. And eventually that's what we figured out. That's what we asked, and that's what we were told. Like, even that's a new program. Even the friend I went with, it was his village. He's like, there aren't usually like this many just sitting around drinking all day, every day, night and day. And so there's some lousy system in place there with the government. I'm sure people are using it wisely, but that group definitely wasn't. So that's interesting as well. What else about the villages? A lot of dirt roads. We had more tire problems than I would like, which is to say, I think 3 of our tires got flat at different times along the journey. Tires are old, the roads are bad, and so we just had to fix it somewhere. Usually we'd rent a boat from someone and take that motorcycle with the tire somewhere, fill it up, bring it back. Because it wasn't punctured, it was just somehow leaking, probably from all the, potholes and things. And the rims aren't in the greatest shape either. So we had some issues there. But overall, that wasted a lot of time. But otherwise, it was a great experience to be there and to visit those different places. And there's differences in the villages. We bought enough greens. There's this green called Bo, which is really good when you mix it with OD paste, which is it's like a cousin of the peanut. So it's like greens mixed with peanut. Super good with Kello especially, which is like a meal cassava mixture thing. Anyways, we bought Bo enough for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Yeah, 6 people for 400 shillings. That's ridiculously cheap. Okay, that's ridiculous. Like, they grew those, they harvested them, and then we bought them for 400 shillings. Now you can buy like a small sweet, like a sucker, or a little like taffy for 100 shillings in town. So that's like 4 sweets. It was crazy how cheap that was. Like, it boggles my mind. Like, to put it into US terms, that's about 12 cents. Of course, the spending power of the dollar is almost 3 times here, but still, that's ridiculously cheap. Like, even all of us, we were surprised at the cost. Not just me, the Mzungu, but all of us who came were like, wow, I think food is cheap here. So there's food there at least, and you can survive on food and family and the earth. And then they receive what education they can, and there's a lot of good there. And right before I was able to visit those places, specifically with the people who were from there. Because if I just showed up somewhere, it's like, hey everyone, let me help you dig, let me help you garden, let me help you fetch water. It would have been different. But since I was going there with my friends, who I've known for long, going to their villages, meeting their families, it was wonderful. They prepared some nice food for us. which in the village means that they kill the animal and then cook it for you. So it was very nice of them. They even gave us a chicken, so we put it in the trunk of our car. And when we got to our next village that night, we took it out of the trunk and it laid an egg on all the humps. So, yeah, that chicken is pretty impressive. What else about the village? All the business there is strictly agricultural. There's a couple, wholesales or warehouses for food that they didn't grow, or to switch out or to buy. There's, still there's a barber shop for people to cut their hair. There's still, other businesses, but it's all centered around the farming and the farms. And you can buy mangoes there for $2K, and then you could sell them again here in Kampala for $10K. And this would just be the transport. But you'd go there, you'd sell, it'd be easy to make money just transporting fruits and selling them. That's what many people do, So there is cheap, and then it's expensive in town. So people will go there, collect all that they can that won't go bad, and bring it back and sell it. That's the same for all the products there. So all that is not just farming, but transportation too. So that's the other interesting thing about the villages. So I think that's the main takeaways from the villages from the week I missed. But it was a great experience, as I said. Highly recommend. Then as for this other week, done a lot too. Spent time moving throughout Jinja, mostly Jinja and Kampala. Recently got to Osaka yesterday. And so here I've been looking into many different things, but I've had so many different meetings and conversations this week that have been great. I've had meetings with bosses in construction, many people in spare parts, auto parts, and even people in supply and logistics. I've been able to talk to a lot of people and learn a lot of information. And spare parts and construction, like auto parts and construction, that costs a lot of capital to start, especially if you're on the supplier side. And again, transport is such a key thing here. The cost of fuel is actually more here than the US. They sell it in liters, so at first it doesn't look that way. But then when you do the math, it's actually quite more expensive here than in the US. And so that really causes prices to be anywhere outside of Kampala, the prices will be higher unless it's produced from there, like the food, right? So people buy spare parts or construction materials, and they have to go to Kampala first to get cleared. And then they drive them sometimes back the same way it came, because they mostly come from Kenya or, from some other country, and then trucked in through Kenya. And then you drive it back towards Kenya to Jinja to sell them at a higher cost because of transport costs. Plus, you can sell at a higher cost because they can't really get to Kampala if their car is ruined. And so that's where the profit comes in as the retailer. So transportation is another huge sector here that is interesting to look into. Ways you can make that faster, better, cheaper. Some of it's governmental, and you can't change that. You can't change the fact that has to go to Kampala first before coming back. But supplying to different locations throughout the country is lucrative for a lot of people. That's what I found in my interviews. And so supplying things from other countries to bring more supplies here could also be very helpful. Especially if there's a way to also distribute it to them at a cheaper rate, but even just to bring more supplies to Kampala itself would be able to help bring a lot of business there, a lot more supply, because right now demand is so high and the supply is quite low. So specifically for their specific models and brands that I don't have many of here, and so those ones are even more expensive. So the supply here is limited, and it could use more coming in or more just brought across the country. Both of those would be able to become businesses that could employ a lot of people, so help a lot of people with jobs, and also help a lot of people with fixing their cars. With higher supply, the prices could become better and more reasonable, allowing more people to eventually have cars, making transport less of a major issue. Not that people need cars here to live their lives, but they do become helpful in many businesses, like we've discussed about with this car before, how it's going to be used as a transportation vehicle. And he'll use it because he lives in more of a village than a city. Like he's near a town, but he doesn't live in town. And so they're a small vehicle transporting people, transporting even their goods, even the things that they've grown just to town, just a few kilometers away. That will still be such a help both to the one who has the vehicle and to the one who's delivering their goods, because like I said, the price in town can be so much better. So that issue with that is it takes so much capital. That one is outside of my range for quite a while, but I now have contacts, information, and people that can allow me to do it later if I'm able to succeed in other endeavors first and have that capital. So yeah, that one is a little bit on pause, but the information is there. And that's the same with construction as well. You need more financial muscles than I currently have to be able to get into the construction field, or onto big projects. And to do smaller projects would require me coming here and being the one doing them, maybe with a couple other people, which currently is not in my capability either. So that one's also on pause. So what am I doing now? What are my short-term ones? Those are my long-term ideas. What are my short-term ones? That's what I've been looking at. First one is to supply. There are things that I see in the US that I think could be great here, but are not here. For example, one is my wireless charger. The phone I came with, the port is broken. It can't charge. Anything you try to connect to it doesn't read anymore. It's totally broken. So I had to bring a wireless charger. Little did I expect the fascination people would have with it. They're all asking to try it, see if it works with their phone. And for many of them, it does. For most of them, it does. And so, with everyone being interested in it, I saw the potential there. And so I've now got in touch with some people who buy electronics and supply them, and bring them to different electronic shops throughout the city, throughout Kampala, specifically on the Kaboa side. And they're definitely very interested. I've been in communication now with some Chinese companies that make them so that it doesn't have to be brought to US first. It can be brought directly from China to Uganda. That's already an established shipping lane that happens a lot. Most products here are Chinese and Indian if they're foreign. Chinese, Indian, and Dubai, UAE, sends a lot of materials here as well. China and India are more of the bulk, and then Dubai is more of the higher end. Like a lot of auto parts come from there, as well as a lot of electronics. So that is what I've been up to now, and that's just one. There's other things I've seen at home that I think if people knew about here and could use them well, could be very easy to bring here to make people's lives easier as well. Wireless charger is just a fun gadget, but it's easy to market because you just set it up in the electronic shop. When someone walks by, they look at it like, what's that? Try to put their phone down. If it charges, they'll be like, that's cool. And just the novelty of the thing makes it very alluring, especially in university areas where we did a lot of our research. So that's more of a novelty thing. But there's other things that, if marketed properly, could help. There's people who make a lot of chips here, what we in America call fries, French fries, and so they, still cut the potatoes by hand with a knife, and there's all sorts of gadgets in the US that, chops all of the potato at once. And for someone whose whole job is doing that every day, day after day, they're good at it and they can do it with their eyes closed. But as a home tool and as a commercial tool, just for these, simple on the street chips and chicken stand, it could help a lot of people if it was marketed properly and if it could be brought here at a very reasonable price. So that's another thing. So it's things like that, where I see things. I have the advantage of having lived in two places, so I can see things I say, hey, I think I would do well here. Board games or card games is another one of those that I think could also do very well. I talked to the owner. Well, I tried to talk to the owner. I ended up talking to a manager of a store in Mukono. And at that store, they have like 2 shelves of American brought games. And it's like the DI. Some of the games are kind of beat up. And they're obviously secondhand, but they're there and they sell. And the owner, I found out, the reason they have those games, the owner lives in US. And so he sends shipments back, or he comes back with them, and he loads them on those shelves. And so just like that, he's using just already his transport cost of him coming and using it to supply his store and thereby make money. I think if we were able to supply that, again, if I was able to ship them not from the US, but from another country, straight from the factories, it would be easier to get it here at cheaper prices, at prices that Ugandans could afford, especially as it's not consumable, not a monthly, buy it again, but as a one-time cost that sometime they do, maybe for a party or for a birthday. They'd love games here. They play games with passion and fervor. The way they play Ludo is they throw the dice down, and they have these big table, like it's a table-sized board that 10 people gather around and watch as these ones are, having the dice in the cup, and just there's a knack they have to making it almost theatrical, just on the side of the road, next to those chips and chicken stand I was talking about, next to the Rolex stand, next to just they enjoy games, and same with the cards. They throw the cards down, where it hits the table, you can hear the snap of it. There's some energy to the way they play games. And of course, pool. They have a lot of pool tables here, and people gather and watch that too. And that's like, for someone who's starting a business, if they can buy a pool table, it can usually pay itself off. If it's in a good location, fairly quickly and easily, because you put in the coin and it does it for you. So you don't need to always be doing something. You can just be there in the background while you're doing something else. So I think that games here would do really well, if we can supply them at a decent price, and that's what I'm looking into as well. So those are some of the things. Those are some of the objects or the fields and things that I'm looking at doing right now. Is connecting here to there, or there to here, across countries, with things that are not here right now, but that I think could do well. That one I can do short term. I can do one shipment of this many, especially with, I'm already in touch with someone who's ready to use them, and bring it in, complete the deal. And then if it sells well, they'll let me know. And if it doesn't sell well, they'll let me know. But either way, as a supplier, he can pay for it when it gets there. So the risk on it would not be too huge if I can find a supply that's interesting and willing to go with it, or not supply, but someone who supplies places here. Yeah, supplier for local places. And if I was the connecting intermediary, then that one could be small by small. Find which things work, find which things don't work, and we could go from there. So yeah, that's been this last couple of weeks. A lot talks to so many businesses, ideas. Anytime I would stop scrolling, back. Oh, by the way, where do you get this from? What? I feel like I've learned a lot. My time is coming to an end. Next week is my last week here, and then we'll do some wrap-up episodes after that. So I'll still talk more about this when I'm back, but time is wrapping up, and I'm hoping that I have enough information, that I have enough solid plans and connections that when I go home I don't feel like I've missed some links, I've missed some pieces, and that I'm not fully ready even after all the time I spent here. So yeah, that's been it so far. We'll end for there for today. There was more I was going to say, but at this moment I can't remember it. So with that, let's uplift Uganda. Uplift Uganda is a production of Food for Thought Audio. This episode was written and produced by me, Trevor Dyches, with music and post-production by Kenny Mears. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, or wherever you listen to podcasts for more content. And until next time, thanks for listening.